Allan, a pretty tough afternoon, given the conditions and the way the game ended up being played out. Probably didn't suit the way that your team normally plays, and you just didn't come out the right side of it.
Yeah, we've just spoken there. We asked for a bit of feedback from players and said, too many errors and loose ball, loose carries, and yeah, both teams did the same. I thought the conditions, but it didn't help both teams. They're very similar to us. I just thought they were smarter than us. Really disappointed how we didn't control the game and be smart and just be happy to complete five and kick, complete five. Apart from the last two sets in first half, we don't get to tackle five once in their half, which is disappointing for us. So I just thought, it was an even match team, an even match game, with two good teams, but they was just smarter than us. I really believe that.
Didn't quite able to seem to contend with their intensity and defensively, especially they were getting 3 or 4 men on every tackle almost, and they had that desire and hunger really that they almost thrived in the situation the game presented.
Yeah, well, we spoke all week, a few times now, that they've probably got best line speed in comp. I do believe, and I don't mind admitting it, there was offside quite a bit, and that's truth, but they're also very quick in how they get off the line. In Garno's, it's impossible to do what he does without being offside, but if you can get away with stuff, you get away with it. But the line speed's very good, and they hunt in numbers, which is good, and they're very good at that. And that's why they're on a run like they are. They've had this team all year. Fortunately, they've not had it on the field, and you look at the quality in the team. They're a good side. So it's not as though we've been beat by a bad side. We've just been a bit disappointed more because we've been better. They've been better organised than us, which is a real disappointment to me.
It was a bit similar to the game against Featherstone a few weeks ago, where neither side really looked like scoring a great deal. And do you see that as a sign that teams are coming to nullify what you're doing, and then you end up in a bit of a stalemate sort of game again?
Maybe so. I feel the weather really put a dampener on how the game could have gone. I think they've got a lot more to offer also. But I also think they carry the ball really well from the ruck, so that would probably suit them. But they show some real skill. If you break the game down, it's a try each, and then there's a couple of penalties extra, and it just runs away from you, kind of thing. So, a genuine try each, and then one from a bounce of the ball, kind of thing. And we say all every week, and we've not done it for that. Don't let the ball bounce. Got to get in positions. But I think that's smart from Ngannou. I thought his kicking game was superb. He's challenging high. The bombs were brilliant. And then if he did put it up, he always found space and found the ground. And on this surface, if you can do that, you never know where he's going to go.
You lost Jordan Johnson in the first half. It's the sort of game that he probably thrives on, putting them big shots in. He didn't look too clever. Is there any early diagnosis on him?
There's no thing on it yet. It doesn't look good, to be honest. They've just said it's got to be 24, 48 hours before they make anything, but he's on crutches now and he's on a brace, so we probably won't see him for a couple of weeks at least, minimum, which isn't great. He's been phenomenal for us, and like you said, he's the kind of guy, when the going got a bit rowdy out there, he'd have thrived off that, and we like putting him back in the middle and mixing it up. But we've got to be a team without him also.
Thought Sam Brooks, he got the sponsors man of the match. He brought that intensity almost in response to what York were doing and forced some good errors. Yeah,
we spoke at half time, and I named him individually. I said, Sam, I thought you've got us back in this game in a bit. How you've gone about it, you've brought the fear factor to them. For us, you carried really well, but defensively every hit meant something, and he's playing like it's his last game, which is really good for me. And I thought last week he was brilliant at Batley as well. So yeah, long may it continue, and we need that. If we're losing bodies, we'll need that.
Is there still a little bit of that in the squad, players playing maybe for a contract for next year that's maybe a motivating factor?
100%. We're not finished on what we need for next year, but there's also people in the squad who potentially might not be here, but have got an opportunity to still be here. So that's the diagnosis of that, and we just want people, showing the fans and the club that they want to be here.
You're still in a good place, but do you see this as another one of them missed opportunities maybe to make your life a little bit easier moving forward?
Yeah, especially with Toulouse winning and Bradford winning, and then obviously Featherstone's been beat, Sheffield's been beat, they play each other next week. That would have just give us that 5 point cushion, and over York as well, because they are a threat, and I do believe they'll make the playoffs. But yeah, it's another game where you just think, we just do a little thing here or do a little thing there, and we get it, but it's not to be. And unfortunately, it's not through lack of effort yet. Again, you see they put everything in there today, just a bit dumb at times.
Any hopes of a quiet few weeks for the podcast are over, Mike? I hope that we might be able to have a nice, relaxing few weeks. Looking forward to Widnes being in the playoffs. But we've gone from Widnes winning and Widnes winning and being in the playoffs, which is what would have happened, to all of a sudden now scratching our heads, looking at the fixture list, thinking, oh, hang on, still got to pull the cat out the bag a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose a little bit of a small reality check to anybody who's getting carried away, I suppose. I think from my perspective, me personally, I thought it was the most difficult of the four left. Like I say, we just come up short, didn't we? I don't think on the day York was too much better. I'm sure we'll go into it shortly. I think there was a couple of key, differences that helped them win the game rather than us. Both sides coughed up a lot of ball, didn't they?
Yeah, I think one of the worrying aspects of it was quite similar to the Featherstone game a few weeks ago, where, to be honest, the game could have played on for a few hours longer, and there probably wouldn't have been many more points, because although York were the better team, the only try they scored was off a freak bounce of a ball, and although they had the better of the middle and they had the better position, they never really looked like scoring many more tries as it was, which is similar to the Featherstone game. I suppose the worrying thing for Widnes is that Widnes didn't look like scoring anyway either.
No, I thought both sides defended brilliant. It was almost as if they wanted to defend the way they were respecting the ball. I think where our problems come was it was where we was dropping the ball. I think York was tending to do it more higher up the pitch. I think a lot of that was to do with Higano's long kicking game. I thought he had a cracking game, both in defence, his line speed. I mean, his force of tackles for a halfback was quite unbelievable in his line speed, but his long kicking game, he was causing us problems all day, wasn't he? And I think because he was pinning us backwards and it was far superior to our long kicking game, we were making errors deeper. So when we was making errors, we wasn't in any real position in good ball really to put an attacking set on too many times. We just wasn't getting up there. But yeah, I think defensively, both sides, the intensity was there to see, two playoff teams, no doubt about it. But I think if you're an opposition, team who could potentially get either side in the playoffs, I think you'd take heart from both sides' performances, thinking, well, if they've got these mistakes in them and that happens in a playoff game, they're there for the taking, really, both.
Yeah, I thought York's line speed was excellent. I thought they were very, very hungry in defence. I thought they didn't really give Widnes any time on the ball, and that was probably the concerning thing for Widnes, was that they just couldn't figure out a way around it. And like you say, I hope that teams watching aren't thinking, oh, this is the way. Well, they'll look at it and think, well, this actually is a way that we can beat Widnes if we get our line speed right. They've not really got anything at the moment. They've not shown any evidence in these two matches we mentioned that they can break that sort of high, quick line speed defence. I think clearly Jordan Johnston going off was a blow. I think it was his sort of match, especially in the second half. Some of the shots that were going in, he would have relished that. But then at the same time, do I think if he was on that it would have made any difference to the attacking side? Probably not.
Well, that's what I was thinking. There's a couple of conversations around that, to be fair, around where I was sitting, and realistically about the time in the game where he went off, that's where he drops to loose forward anyway. And when he drops to loose forward, he tends to obviously have more of a say at first receiver, passing the ball out, freeing up Lyons, Gilmore and Owens a little bit more, and we just wasn't getting any good ball field position to put together any place for him to do that. I think the other aspect of his game, like you've just said, is his ferocious line speed. He loves coming out and belting one or two. But I'll be honest, I thought we was doing that. I don't think we failed in that department. I think Fozzard had a couple of good powerful tackles. Sam Brooks come on like a man possessed and really belted it as much as any of the York forwards did to us. I thought he had probably his best game yet, backed up from a good performance from the last couple of weeks as well. So he's banging form. So I don't think it would have made a great deal of difference, to be honest, because as far as I was concerned, it was the repeated. It sounds boring, doesn't it? But I think it's as simple as that, really. You know, our downfall was the amount of times the ball ended up on the floor, and we wasn't. What we wasn't doing is we wasn't putting any 2 or 3 sets together. So York was just resting up all the time. So we wasn't tiring the defence out.
Yeah, like I say, it was a frustrating one, and I think you're not obliged to win any game. It was just a shame that was a really good opportunity for Widnes to box off the playoff spot. And as it is, I still think Widnes will make the playoffs. I think Sheffield are probably. I think Sheffield are going to struggle. They still do have to play Dewsbury, though, which is their ace in the pack, if you like, because that effectively means, well, I suppose the same as before Sunday. Widnes definitely need to win at least one more game to get to the playoffs. They might need to win 2. And all of a sudden, the trip to Doncaster on Sunday looks probably a lot more daunting than it did even this time last week, especially given the score that they put on Barrow on Batley last weekend.
Well, yeah, we spent a bit of the podcast, didn't we, talking about uphill, downhill, what's the best? Well, it didn't matter to Doncaster, did it? Let's face it was an absolute mauling. Not many teams go to Batley and towel them, do they, on their own pitch? But
when it came through at 16-0, I said to John, there's no prizes for guessing who was playing down the hill first half, but actually Doncaster were playing up the hill when it was 16-0 at half time, and they'd had a man sin-binned as well in that first half. So it sort of what's the right way to say it? Dampens the fire of us last week saying how good of a win it was at Batley to win 12-8.
Well, yeah, they blew that result absolutely out the water, haven't they? But I've got to give a bit of respect to Doncaster, because obviously since coming up from League One, look, they have invested. It's there to see. There's quality all around the pitch. Players like Loverdua, Craig Hall, the list goes on. Matagi, I think, and obviously, I think this time next year, I think they could be a playoff team another year better. They're finishing strongly, and I think, where you get to the point where arguably maybe a bit like Batley now, maybe our result last week, because it more or less finished Batley's playoffs hopes, their cues on the rack. I don't think Doncaster have that mentality, because it's the first season in the Championship for quite a while, and that they've been happy to build into it and finishing strongly and enjoying every moment and building into next year. I think it's a bit of a different almost mindset, and I think they're a dangerous team. I think for anybody who's left to play them, us included, what they delivered, on Sunday, you're looking at that with a bit of a different light now, and could have a big say in how the playoff race finishes.
I think Doncaster still felt they needed a win to be safe. I certainly think they've got enough points on the board now, but I think before last week's win, I think there was still a little bit of, they were still looking over their shoulder a little bit, thinking, well, if we don't pick up any points, we might get pushed out, or at least in that playoff match against the League One team. Clearly the win last week probably pretty much makes them safe. So again, you don't know how that's going to. I thought Doncaster played well in both the games at Widnes earlier in the year. The first one the scoreline got away from him and didn't reflect the how close the game was. I know Widnes ran up a score in the end, but I thought Doncaster were a lot more competitive than that, and they showed that in the second game that Widnes won quite narrowly. So I think it's going to be tough. I think Doncaster have got a lot of potential. The run as part of there's like an overall club there that incorporates the football and the women's football. Carl Hall was the vice president of the RFL a few years ago for a year. He's a very proud rugby league man. And if Doncaster could be a Super League club. They've got the facilities and stuff there to get. When we talk about what clubs have got potential, clearly there's clubs in the Championship that will never play in Super League, but Doncaster aren't one of those clubs. They've if things go their way, or if they get investment, or if they go one way, or they've got potential to do that. So I would expect them to be a competitive Championship team once, like you say, they've consolidated themselves a bit. And especially when you consider Oldham will come up as well. It's only gonna get tougher to get into the playoffs. So yeah, it will be an interesting game. And a tough one. But I do think Widnes are gonna have to win at least one of the last three. Definitely have to win one. They'll be hoping one will be enough, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we've had a fantastic season, and it could quite well be Sunday. Let's have it right. I'd be very surprised if we went up to Doncaster on Sunday and dropped the ball that many times. And dropping the ball that many times, and you've only conceded 12 points, and the same in the Featherstone game where that was equally as frustrated, and you've only conceded 8 points. There's a lot of positives in that, as if to say, you can flip that and be like, well, we're not going to be as bad as that again, and we're going to, score points. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Sunday where we turned it around. I'm still confident we'll win, a good few of our remaining games. I really am. It goes without saying, completion is absolutely paramount and important. As we've seen, Doncaster, they've got points in them and they will punish us, and it'd be a challenge to defend them. But yeah, I think it's one of them where I don't think we can get too downbeat. You've got to kind of chalk it off now, haven't you, and move past it, and hopefully it starts on Sunday.
Yeah, you mentioned Sam Brooks before, and you will have heard from Allan Coleman in his interview that he was saying some players are playing for deals for next season. You would expect maybe Sam Brooks is one of those players. For me, he's probably not. I mean, I know he's got the squad number 10. He's not started many games, and he probably wouldn't, he certainly wouldn't be the number 10 in my squad list. But has he shown enough to prove he's worth being in the squad for next season?
I'd say he's left it very late in the day. I do. Although I don't think he's not been poor by any stretch, but I feel that the other props at the club have had certainly stronger seasons. Some of the injured props I think we've seen better from when they have been fit, like Callum Field, for example. It's been an injury troubled season for him, but I'd say the quality I've seen from Callum has outweighed the quality we've seen from Sam. However, on Sunday and the last week or two, you can't take away from him how aggressive and assertive he was in the game, and he was man of the match by a country mile for me. I think I don't think that there was any doubt about that. What I would say, and as fans, you don't get the beauty of this. It's a squad game, and everybody's not on the same money. So I suppose it'd depend how much money he commands, how much money he's on in comparison to what he's delivered this season. But if he's got any chance of staying for me, I think we've got to see more performances like Sunday. And it's got to happen week on week now, because you've also got to look at it as well. If he hasn't agreed his deal, you've got to look and recruit other players as well, and identify them and negotiate them and get that over the line, which I'm sure that doesn't happen in a couple of days.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think Sam Brooks, he concedes probably too many penalties for me. Certainly in probably in I guess he's coming on to make an impact, so he's always going to have that little bit of a risk element to him. But I just think there's been games this season where I felt that Widnes have conceded penalties at the wrong time, and you want to try and eradicate that. I mean, you look at Dan Murray. I can barely remember Dan Murray conceding a penalty all season, to be honest. And I think Murray and Kirk have pretty much established themselves now as the starting props, and I think they're very effective when they do that. So you're effectively looking at, you're looking at who are you going to be your two off the bench, and as part of that, you've got the situation with Martin Riley and Ryan Lennon. Presumably, well, Allan Coleman wants to play them as middle, so Lannon plays a long minutes. I'm sure Riley'd like to play long minutes as well. So all of a sudden, there's not actually that many gaps to fill. So I know there's been a piece put out. We talked about Joey Romeo last week, and a piece is being put out this week from Matt Shaw, effectively just confirming what he'd said to us a few weeks ago, and what I'd been asking about Romeo. Widnes have been linked with him. I don't know whether there's been any advance on the situation from a few weeks ago where it was a case of, Widnes were interested in him, but it was a case of room on the salary cap. And like you say, it might, not room on the salary cap, room on the budget. Like you say, Mike, it might be dependent on some of the existing squad, whether they stay or not, whether that creates room. But as part of that piece, Matt also, I mean, Jake Mason's signed, basically. I know it's not been officially announced, but every man and his dog knows. But then the other three players that have been linked to Widnes are Gavin Benyon, the prop from Swinton. Lewis Hall's more of a utility player, and Deck Patton. We obviously had a long conversation about a few of them players in a podcast. It was probably ages ago now, mate. We were going through these that quickly. One thing, just when we talk, and we'll go through the Widnes squad in a sec, but one thing about Lewis Hall is I feel like if he was to play standoff, I feel like his long kicking game could be a big game changer for Widnes. Like you mentioned Hingano before. I think the power and the height that Hingano was getting meant that they could mix up the kicks. And obviously Widnes got Tom Gilmore, good place kicker. But it'd be nice to have that second option who can do something a bit different.
Yeah, 100%. And that, look, this is no disrespect to either halfback playing, because I really like them as a pair this year. They've been brilliant. I think Joey, we're seeing a little bit more where his kicking game comes in. It's a bit more off the cuff now, isn't it? When he's running or sees a bit of space, dabbing in behind. And I think, obviously Tom himself as well. I think he's a much, like you just said, place kicking, but also shorter kicking game is more his game as well, certainly from my opinion. Fozzard's probably our best long kicker from acting half, to be honest, dummy half.
Yeah,
you can't kick with your hooker all the time. You can do it occasionally, but
I said that on. I mentioned that in the commentary actually on Saturday. I don't feel like he's done it so much this season.
No, but we've seen it. He's kicked many a 40-20, hasn't he?
Whether it's because in previous seasons he was pretty much the 80-minute hooker, so obviously he had more opportunity to do it. Whereas now he's maybe only playing 40, 60 minutes at hooker. Maybe that makes the difference. I think one of the things we always have a debate about in the commentary is because Lyons plays on the right and he's a left-footed kicker, and Gilmore plays on the left, and I know he can kick with both feet. It almost feels like it's almost difficult for Joe Lyons to be on kicking duties because he's never.
Yeah.
He's never in the right place. It's not his fault, but he's never got the right angle to kick. Whether we're looking at like Hingano was getting himself in all sorts of positions on Sunday, and it did make a big difference. And I've seen some ridiculous criticism of Jack Owens for the try. There's absolutely nothing Jack Owens could do about that. He's scampering over to save the 40-20. It takes a wicked bounce, and it goes on the inside. But that's only possible because of the way Hingano was kicking the ball.
Oh, he was an absolute menace. He was an absolute menace all afternoon. He was in the he had the referee in the palm of his hands as well with the line speed and knowing he knew exactly what he could get away with, and he took full advantage, and absolutely fair play to him for that. He's like I say, some of them bombs he put up as well. I mean, we're talking about his 40-20 efforts. He could have had about three of them if we were playing on grass. Let's face it. And the wingers didn't seem to learn. Jack was having to scurry across the pitch a good few times, so I think we didn't pick that up probably as well as what we should have. And it was, like you say, it was a wicked bounce for the try as well. And there's not much you can do about that. But some of the bombs he was putting up as well. I mean, they were coming down with snow on. I mean, Mike Butt is usually safe as houses, isn't he? And even he was struggling to deal with them, which I think it speaks. That speaks absolute volumes. But going back to the Lewis Hall debate with it, a bit of a longer kicking game. I know you're not. I know you're not a massive advocate at the moment of Deck Patton potentially signing. But I think one thing that Deck has that maybe is better than Tom and Joey is a longer kicking game, and I think it's not a bad option to have in your squad, is it? Even if he's not the first choice halfback, Lewis Hall or Deck Patton, but if you're going into a game where the weather conditions are going to be testing and difficult, and there's going to be a bit of drop ball, it's good to have that in your back pocket of putting somebody in who has a bit of a longer kicking game to get you higher up the pitch.
You would imagine if Patton is signing for Widnes, he'll be signing to be first choice and nothing else.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a few people have asked about the squad situation. So, I mean, we did go through this 7 or 8 weeks ago, I think it was now. But as far as we are aware, or what has been publicly announced, Widnes have got 12 players signed up for next season at the moment, which is, in no particular order: Liam Kirk, Rodri Lloyd, Matty Fozzard, Joe Lyons, Martin Riley, Dan Murray, Ryan Lannon, Tom Gilmore, Jack Owens, Jordan Johnston, Ryan Ince, and Mike Butt. We already know that Sam Wilde and Lloyd Roby are off to pastures new. They're both going Crusaders, aren't they? Yeah. Which leaves us with 13, if my maths is on the ball, Mike. 13 players to either decide upon or find out about. Shane Grady being one of them, actually, he's a left field suggestion. We'll hopefully be able to ask him whether he's staying very soon. Where at the moment, I mean, it's hard for me to say it on here. I've wrote the players, the 12 players that you've got or that are signed at the moment, and then we assume Jake Mason. I've got him in my dummy team anyway, and my gaps at the moment are in the centres and in the back row to fill. So, where do you think are you? Who do you think's most likely to be stopping?
Staying.
Yeah.
I think. No doubt, in my mind, I think Joe Edge will be there next year. He's had an unfortunate season, but we all know his quality. It's the first injury-disrupted season that we've seen from him, I think, certainly from my memory. I think he'll be there.
Fleming, just go through him in squad number order. Fleming's the next one up. Fleming's been playing very well the last few games, certainly defensively. And he maybe strikes me as a player who's playing for a deal. Maybe he's one where they're on the fence and it's a case of, can he do enough to convince Allan or whoever he needs to convince that he's worth another year. Maybe he might not be first choice because by the sounds of it, they're going to try and play, they're going to try and do this dynamic centre type thing, and so whether Fleming's happy to sign knowing that he's probably going to have to play second fiddle, but then given Widnes' injury record, if you were going to be second fiddle anyway, you'd probably have a go at doing it at Widnes because you probably are going to get a game at some point.
Yeah, 100%. And look, things can change very easily. You need squad depth. You can look at a squad at the start of the season and you can go, I don't think he'll struggle to get a game. Then you play, don't you? And then you've lost 2 or 3 bodies, and you're down to like 19, 20 players. But when you're at full strength, it's easy to forget sometimes. I think the thing with Flem, and I've got to put him on the keep list for me because he has had a real good few weeks. But usually more often than not he's fit. But he can play centre winger fullback as well. He is versatile and he'll do an okay job. He'll never let you down. I think the thing with Flem where people get frustrated, and I think I alluded to it, a while back, you want just a little bit extra from a centre. A bit of X factor, but then you look around the Championship, and I think you had your spin on it as well, and it's probably one of the hardest positions to get an absolute, monster of a centre who crashes over, who's playing in the Super League struggle for them.
Yeah, he's not got that. He's not got that. Running wide on someone's shoulder on the last tackle or close to the line, and he's not really got that in him. But like you say, it's so difficult. And we've talked about it before, centres get turned into back rows in this country, decent centres get turned into back rows if they're big enough. And I'd probably advocate, and like I say, it all depends on budget. You could probably make an argument for pretty much every player to stay. We talked about Field, we touched on Field and Brooks already. I think Field, if he's fit, is a no-brainer. Brooks is probably one with a bit of a question mark on. But then, like you say, if you tossed up them two and Brooks was a lot cheaper, then he might make more sense to be your 4th or 5th prop than, can you afford to, and I have no idea what they earn. Can they afford to keep Callum Field on the money he's on if he's only going to be 4th or 5th choice? You would imagine that when Callum Field signed, he was probably up there as one of the top earning prop.
Well, that's it. Like you say, he come from Featherstone, didn't he? And at the time, he was really struggling, and he impressed. He added a bit of grunts into the pack, and obviously off of the back of that, it's important to remember when players sign the deal because that's when they warrant the money. Then what happens during the contract is obviously a completely separate thing. I imagine Cal will be on a decent whack in the squad. But I like Cal. I'd like him to, still be around. I think just going back to the outside backs just dead quickly. One thing worth noting is, we went with 4 out and out wingers really last year, and we won't. I think we'll have like 3 max, and then you've got like Joey Romero, potentially Matt Fleming, who can all play, a number of positions in the back line. Jake Mason can play a number of positions in the back line. So that versatility as well, you're not just having an out-and-out winger. I think that's good value for the squad.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, if you've is it a Romeo or Fleming situation at the moment? Who knows? Is it that you have both of them and they cover the centre, wing and full-back positions between them? Possibly. Like you say, in theory, if you went in the season, this season, like say, you had 4 wingers. If you went into the season and you effectively had four to cover the wings, but 2 of them were the utilities, I think that's probably a more sensible approach. But
and also as well, we're losing obviously Lloyd Roby, aren't we? Now, fortunately, this year, Jack's played most games, but if Jack picked up an injury for a couple of months, that is a role that needs covering. You kind of second full back, but he can play a number of positions as well.
What is your position on Jack Owens? Because to be honest, I'm surprised, or I think some of the criticism that he gets is unwarranted.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think he gets more grief than any other player, to be quite honest. And I think it's clear to see he probably cares, one of the most. I think is visual. It's it's visual when he gets frustrated. You can see it. There's no getting away from it. He's got a drop. He's got a drop ball in him. We've all seen it, and players are targeting that.
But
I've got to be honest, James. He's got to be in the team for me. I mean, you say that with the drop ball. Look at that battle. He spotted the two defenders on the short side and made it a 3-on-2 and banged that pass. And that put Jack Owens in an attacking line on someone's 20-meter line, and he gets the ball out the back. There's probably nobody better in the division to pick the right pass to feed the wingers. Where I think you alluded to it with the potential idea of seeing him and Mason, swapping over during games from, centre to fullback. I think it's a cracking idea, because I think my biggest surprise with Jack was how well he slotted in at centre, and I think he has probably lost a little bit of pace now. So maybe the centre position could potentially be a home for him in the future, and a bit of that swapping and changing with Jake Mason or another player, at fullback.
I think the Owens thing is, and I keep saying, we look miles better with Lloyd Roby in the team. I disagree. I also think, with all due respect to Lloyd Roby, I think Lloyd Roby's made as many mistakes as Jack has anyway. So I don't see how that comes. I think Owens is probably one of them players where if Owens wasn't in the team, people would be moaning that he wasn't in the team, because he's pretty much the bona fide player, the stereotypical player that people want in the team. He's a Widnes lad, supports Widnes. He's good. He's a good passer with the ball. He kicks the ball. He's versatile, whatever. And I think he's probably just a victim of that. People probably want too much from him and criticise him more than is warranted. I'd still like for him to get a run at standoff, to be honest. I feel like that. And to be honest, I feel like the reason why he hasn't had a run at standoff is partly because I think, although Lloyd Roby's played well from an attacking point of view, I feel like Widnes looked shaky in defence when he was the fullback. Now, whether that's because it's there's a lot of coaching that goes on at fullback, isn't there? And whether there's a little bit of, I remember the one where they clashed into each other a couple of times, and it's like, I don't feel like that happens if you play every week. And that's not his fault, obviously. But I feel like partly the reason Owens hasn't played standoff is because, Joe Lyons has played well, and it's been probably harsh to drop him. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the hook situation. We know that Matty Fossard can play the full game, but it doesn't look like to be honest. I mean, I know the club's not putting up that out yet, but I'd be surprised if we see Jordan Johnston this season based on how he looked after the game on Sunday.
As I say, he's not a soft player either, and he looked in absolute agony, didn't he? It's not a sight you like to see at all.
So again, going to that, it might be that, if there's got to be a bit more movement around the hooker position, maybe, does that then create some room for Jack Owens to move inside, to move into the six, or to cover, or I don't know at this point, but
he's got to be in the team, James. He's too smart of a player to leave out. Like like him counting numbers. His ball skill, his quick fire pass. All right, on Sunday that didn't come off, but neither did anybody else. You know what I mean? That he wasn't the only one who fired balls into touch or dropped the balls. You know what I mean? I think every player near enough had a go.
Well, I think did he drop one?
He fired one into touch. I don't think he had an out, but there were that many, James.
Like I say, I mean, the criticism of the 40-20, I mean, I was well situated for the 40-20 where it bounced. I mean, the thing is if that had bounced out for 40-20, people would have moaned that he wasn't getting across there quick enough to stop the 40-20. And no one in their right mind was expecting that bounce on the inside. You could even maybe criticise that there was no one chasing back, to help him. But anyway, going back to this squad then, Danny Langtree, we would have to assume might call it a day. Who knows? Nick Gregson, we forgot to touch on this last week. The ongoing disciplinary case involving the Swinton coach, Alan Kilshaw, in relation to now infamous picture that was pinned up in the Swinton dressing room. There was a report last week, I think Aaron Bauer did it. Apparently there's going to be some sort of tribunal or some sort of hearing the week after the season finishes, I think. There was a little bit of a reaction to that because, of course, if Swinton finished third bottom, they'd have to play the week after the season. So I have no inclination of what's going on or what the outcome's going to be. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one.
It's interesting, the word, James. I still can't think of anything quite like it, to be honest, to compare it to.
Well, it's going to be an interesting week because I think they're lining up the Mark Aston hearing. It might even be the same day. You know, they've got this ongoing Mark Aston situation with Sheffield. And to be honest, from what I'd be surprised if Mark Aston's the coach Sheffield next season, based on what I've been told. But
the allegations are not good, are they? You don't want them next to your name.
But he's got some legal, backing now. So it's going to be an ugly one. However that ends up, is going to be pretty ugly, especially when you consider Mark Aston's he is Sheffield, really. He's having to miss the 40th anniversary dinner. So Nick Gregson, we haven't really heard of. He was ruled out for the season. I suppose he'll make a decision whether he goes again. I would assume that if he decides that he is going to play on, there'll be a deal for him at Widnes.
Yeah. What do you think, James? What would be interesting to see what you think.
I'm not. I wouldn't say that. I'm trying to be his diplomat. I'm not a massive fan of Nick Gregson. I don't think he's a bad player by any stretch. I think my reasoning for him to if he wants to play on to stay is because clearly Allan Coleman likes him and the way he plays. And that's probably the way I'd look at it. He's got size. He adds a little bit there. I know he was getting a little bit of criticism, but I think when he's not there, I do think that sometimes there are games where you feel like, well, if he was available, he probably would do well there.
Yeah, I'm not too far away from you, to be fair. I personally just think we've got too many potential players who want to play loose forward, My problem with Gregson as well, not problem with him, but I don't think he played enough minutes for a loose forward for me. Like I know you can say that, I suppose, about some other players, but you've got Max Roberts, who, I know he started, the last couple of weeks, but he's that impact type loose forward. We've got Jordan Johnson dropping back who can play the full 80 no problem, and he gets better and better, doesn't he, playing that ball handling 13 role. Martin Riley more in a props body. He's got good ball skill, so he's a potential option there. And then you've got Ryan Lannon, who we've not had the beauty of seeing it all too often yet, but I think it's quite clear that he's going to be a loose forward option. And then if Callum Field stays, he's another one who's operated at loose forward as well. So I just think you've got a culmination there, and Gregson really doesn't play in any other position.
Yeah, I was just going to say that really, that the thing is, you talk about Max Roberts, who I actually think, I like how Max Roberts takes the ball to the line when he's playing loose forward. He seems to have a bit more about him than, he genuinely, he's obviously got a bit of football in him. He's played in the backs and stuff, but I feel like if you got him right, I think he could actually be a good pivot at loose forward. And you mentioned Lannon. Both Roberts and Lannon can play in the back row, whereas you feel like Gregson, unless he's at 13, there's not really anywhere else on the pitch that you want him to be. And, I guess, can you afford to carry someone like that? I think, moving on to the next player, I think Max Roberts is, I think for his utility value alone, he's been great this season. I think the fact that he can play in the middle, he can play in the back row, he can drop in at centre, to have him on the bench, you almost can get away with not having a back. Well, you can get away with not having a back on the bench because you know that if push comes to shove, and Rodri Lloyd to an extent, you can put him there. But I just think that, and don't get me wrong, I think there's probably going to be a time with Max Roberts where you need to mould him into what you want him to be. You can't just. I mean, well, you might be able to, but I don't feel like you can just say to a player, right, we're just going to keep you for the next 10 years because we want you to play every position you possibly can because that helps us out. I think at some point, someone's going to get into him and say, right, this is your role in this team. And whether that's as an enforcer, whether that's as a wide running second rower, whether it's as a ball playing loose forward, I think that there's definitely something there that makes him more than worth keeping.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he's a shoe-in for me. And did I when he comes to Widnes, did I think I'd ever be talking about him being a loose forward? Absolutely not. Where I give the lad credit, massive credit, is when he first started doing a good job at the start of the season at loose forward, it was more of a case of coming on, having a dynamic impact, leg drive, post-contact meters, all that type of stuff, and bringing a bit of energy and a bit of speed to the middle of the pitch. As the season's gone on, you can clearly see, like you've just said, he's taking it to the line now and passing it, and he's learning that like first receiver role as well. So he's adding strings to his bow all the time. And although, like you said there, I'm sure him more than anybody, I'd love to nail down his position and not be the first person to be moved. At the same time, you can't ignore it, can you? It saves your interchanges and it can get you out of a hole. Like when we went Batley last week, and their fullback goes off, you've got, back rows in the centres on the wing, and it disrupts you. Whereas the beauty of Max is because he's probably, played centre the majority of his career, he just slots in like a glove.
Yeah, I think he's certainly no brainer. I think we touched on Liam Bent and Ollie Brooks. I heard a murmur that they were going elsewhere, but Brooks is being injured. I think Liam Bent's had a lot more minutes recently, probably than he has over the past few seasons. Maybe that's a sign that, is it a case of Allan Coleman's having a look at him to see, well, almost saying to him, prove to me that you're worth another year. I think Liam Bent defensively, you can't question him at all. I used to like the way that he played with Adam Lawton. I used to think the way that they played Adam Lawton as when John Kay played Adam Lawton at prop and Liam Bent effectively did Adam Lawton's tackling. I thought that was a great way of doing it because Liam Bent struggles to make meters post contact, where clearly that's not an issue Adam Lawton has, but maybe Adam Lawton has a few issues with tackling. I did think that I used to like that, but whether there's a place for Liam Bent in the squad again, that might come down to budget. Brooks is being a bit unfortunate with injury. And then Shane Grady, the last one. If he wants to sign, I'd sign him yesterday, to be honest. I think Steve said to me, photographer Steve said to me the other day, he's like, I don't understand why he retired, like, to be honest, because he's just come straight back in.
He just wanted a couple of holidays, didn't he? Let's face it. And he's got a bit bored of the sun now, hasn't he? So he's back here now.
It would seriously, though. No. Sorry, hopefully we can. Well, he might not tell us even if we ask him, but it would be interesting to know whether he was offered a deal for this season or whether he decided to retire, and so there was no discussion about a deal. It'd be really because obviously Widnes made signings in that position, didn't they? Obviously Danny Langstreet, Kit was coming, Nick Gregson was coming, Martin Riley was coming, albeit Riley probably would have played in the middle. But I do wonder whether was it a case of there was no room at the inn, and so he decided to hang up his boots, or was it a decision he made? Yeah, sorry, go on, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the few bits and pieces I've heard and stuff, I believe it was his decision, but we'll ask it from the horse's mouth. But I don't think it'd take much negotiating, would it? I don't. Let's have it right. If he wants to stay, I'm sure the contract would be on the table. It'd be the quickest deal you could ever get over the line. How on earth someone that plays that way, the way he does, the aggression, he just throws himself into tackles. I mean, there was one on Sunday where it was an absolute bone rattler, and he just gets up. It don't faze him whether he's got the ball or he's the one making the tackle. And how anybody can take 9-10 months off, and then his first game's Wakefield, like of all, and he didn't look out of place, at all.
I did enjoy the tackle you're on about was Nick R. Williams, who tackled Shane Grady, and I did enjoy that Shane Grady sort of got up and sort of said to him, well done, sort of thing, like well done on the hit, because it was, it did hit him, like, and I did quite enjoy that he just got up and said, fair play, that was a good hit.
He's absolute no nonsense, but like you talk about wanting to go and watch an all action player, and you go on about Super League and plays in Super League, but for me, there's nobody better to watch to get you off your seat than Shane. I mean, like I say, his passion, is unbelievable. He's the first one over to G people up if they make if they make a mistake or they make a good tackle or a try. But like I say, every time he takes the ball in, it's 100%. Sometimes you feel like people are going into collision at 75% speed. Every time he's running onto the ball, it's 100 mile an hour, and the same in defence as well. I mean, it's some crunching tackles. I think he's great to watch, and it's great to have him back. And I can't say enough good things about the guy, to be fair. And he's obviously, he's a hell of a character as well, which is the cherry on the cake. The one thing I'm disappointed about actually is we've not heard when he scored Slim Shady Shane Grady. So I think
but they've been playing that. They play that same song, don't they? Every time it's that. I can't think. Obviously, we didn't hear it very much on Sunday, so I can't remember what it is now. Off the top of my head, because if I go to the game with my sister, she's always like, "Oh, it's this song all the time." It's the same song after every goal kick or try or whatever it is. I can't think what it is. Anyway, we should mention actually we not touched on this, the development squad stuff that's been happening over the last few weeks. The new academy type system that's being set up. You're talking about Shane Grady there. We've talked about Jack Owens. We've talked about Tom Gilmore. Very important to have at least some sign of hope that in the next X number of years there might be another Shane Grady or Jack Owens or Tom Gilmore coming through the ranks.
Yeah, 100%. It is fantastic to see. You've got to start somewhere. The club have certainly done that. Getting it involved on a match day, things brilliant. I know not all of them stay, but there was a moment for them the other week in the Bridge Suite where they had the presentations, being part of the club. Fantastic. And there's been a lot of conversation, hasn't there, over the years about the academy. Some people think it's worth having, some people don't, for their own reasons. What I would say to the people that are on the side of the fence of, what's the point? Any good player that we get, we lose. Well, look round our squad now. Jack Owens, Joe Edge, Shane Grady, Mike Fozzard from the town. Lloyd Roby, but I know he's moving on. Joe Lyons, Tom Gilmore, Jordan Johnson. The best players we've got now are from the academy that disbanded. So it's massively important to the talent pool and playing pool. Yes, you're going to lose players to the better teams. Unfortunately, that is where we are. But you can still get good players from it that may never make Super League, but can be really good championship players, as all of them players that I've mentioned have. So for me, great work by the club, and I hope they really keep pushing it the way they do, because there's a lot of people who care about it, and I think, it's really good to see.
Yeah, and like you say, I think if you do it in the right way, even if you lose players to Super League or whatever, there's every chance to come. Like Danny Walker, for instance, if he gets to the end of his career in Super League and he feels like he'll have another year in the Championship or wants to play part time for a year, he would probably come back to Widnes to play, based on his past with the club. So yeah, right. We got any questions, Mike?
Yeah, we've got a few. There's one about, why aren't the club advertising the long cows to away fans? ? What I would say to that first of all, I suppose it is advertised. Like, they do put it up through our social media pages. I think where this question kind of goes, could they maybe get the away side to prompt their supporters that the options there possibly a little bit more, but is that really their job? But I think what it comes down to is, for me, fair play to the club for trying the longhouse. I don't think the room is adequate for what we need. Potentially there might be something that we could do. I don't know what the ins and outs would be around it. Maybe we could get something pre-match in the Bridge Suite instead, a bit more, of a family feel room. Obviously, you've got, the hospitality side of things, so I don't know if that runs over with that. And I think it's just probably, I know there's comments here about, lots of away fans being in the bowler and being in the cookhouse, but I think if we're being honest, it's probably just a better match day atmosphere and experience for the away fan. We probably do it, if we're being honest, to put a few extra quid in the till.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I won't comment too much because it's not something that I would go to. But yeah, if you go to the cookhouse, the sun's out, whatever, you can sit outside. Whereas, do you want to be packed into what is effectively a sports hall for an hour before the game? I think it's tough, because I think for me, I'm a bit like, if I was sitting in the north stand, I'd want something that was in or around the north stand. I wouldn't want to have to go round to go in one side and then come round the other. That might just be me being a bit lazy, but yeah, I think at the moment it's almost a bit of paying lip service, I think, to something better. What should be something better. But as we've touched upon in the last few weeks, clearly there are issues with not owning your own stadium and not having, and having an what I perceive as an overzealous council preventing you from doing certain things. So yeah, hopefully over time there'll be improvements made in that area.
Yeah. Just one on updates on injuries. It's a bit hard for me and James, because obviously we probably just get the information that what other people do. I think there's going to be a injury update later this week, probably because they don't know what's happening with Jordan Johnson, and he'll be included on that. I think Allan alluded to that in his post-match press conference. Sam Wilde, I believe, he's still at the club. I know there was a lot of talk around his, him leaving and potentially his job having been related to his departure. I believe he is injured, and I think it's a hamstring injury that's dragged on a little bit. So I do know people, a couple of people.
Because I know that
Sam for that information.
Yeah, I think he was specifically asked the question after one of the games in the tunnel, I remember, and he was hoping to be 1 or 2 weeks, but that was like probably 4, 5, 6 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Clearly bringing someone back of his caliber would be a boost. But yeah, Johnston, you'd have to. I think they're worried they were going to leave it 48 hours to have a look at it and then, to let it settle down. But yeah, I think it would be, especially you've got to consider as well that if Jordan Johnson was still a Super League player, it might have been an injury that they could have patched him up, and played him in the playoffs or something this year. But the bottom line is all these players have got to work for a living, and so ultimately, his priority has got to be putting food on the table for his family. And so, any injury might disrupt that anyway. So you've got to be careful with them sort of situations. But it's a massive blow. And I was half having a discussion. I wasn't sure whether he might have an outside chance of being shortlisted for Championship Player of the Year.
Yeah, it certainly won't put it past him. He's had an absolutely outstanding season. I mean, what more can I add to that, really? I think that compliment to him, James, says it all, and it's thoroughly warranted, really. The last bit on the injury news, just from what I know, spoke to Martin Riley at Batley. I believe that is a week-by-week basis now. I think people can sympathise with that one with the club of it's working out when the right time is to play him, because with such a serious injury and being out for such a long period of time, it's when to chuck them back in. It's very difficult, and it's even more difficult at this stage of the season when so much is on the line as well, because there's nothing that compares to match fitness, when you've spent so long off.
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I'm sure he probably wants to play, but if you chucked him in the next couple of weeks and he gets injured because he's come back too soon or at not the right time, and then all of a sudden he's missing pre-season again, that's even worse, isn't it? I suppose you could make the argument, well, if we chuck him in now and he breaks down again, at least you've got the off-season to recover him. But yeah, that's the risk. It's a risk. It's a risk one way or the other. But for me, my position on it is that I'd rather probably now, for the sake of, what have we got, 4 games? For the sake of 4 games, Widnes aren't particularly sure in that position. Is it worth the risk of him doing something that, whereas now he can carry on rehabilitating, carry on training. Yeah, obviously he can't play games, but he can stay fresh, he can get fit, and then hit pre-season next season. I think that would probably be my position on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Just one here about, I've not got any real information on this one, James. I'm hoping you could help me out here. Can the club confirm whether we took the RFL loan during COVID or not?
I don't know, but we could probably ask the question. The club did release their accounts for up to November 23 quite recently, and of course it doesn't give you specifics on whether there's a COVID loan in there. But yeah, there's clearly some outstanding outstanding creditors on the accounts. I don't think you can look at the accounts yourself on Companies House. I think they're not spectacular, but they're not terrible either. I think it just looks like a club that's wiping its face, which I think we all pretty much know is the case anyway. But yeah, in terms of the COVID loan, I would be surprised if they didn't. I would be surprised if any rugby league club didn't, to be honest. The only saving grace I think for the championship teams was obviously they didn't play. Yeah. So it was, but when you had furlough and stuff like that. So yeah, but I would be surprised if any club didn't take it if it was there.
Yeah. And that's it for the questions. A few people have obviously commented about a couple of events that are happening at the moment. Widnes Vips, another evening on at the Woodlands, Allan Coleman night, questions and answers. Will you be able to make that one, James?
Oh, to be honest, I did look at it, but I was thinking, Alan Coleman's probably sick of me asking him questions. Probably it's somebody else. Although I was going to say, I wonder if Derek Beaumont's going to be there because he was at the game on Sunday wearing a what does it say on the t-shirt? Alan Coleman fan club or whatever it says on the t-shirt. Derek Beaumont had one on.
Yeah, him and Neil Dukes did a good job propping up the bar as well because they were one of the last ones out of the bridge suite along with myself. So
well, that'll do it. Well, the council will be very happy with that at least.
But no, it should be a good night. With all seriousness, with Vips, they always do a terrific job, don't they? The quiz night was brilliant.
Yeah, what night? What day
goes
is it,
into
Mike? Let's
it.
give it a proper plug. What night is it?
It is.
Oh, he's not done his research.
Don't want to get this wrong. It's the 25th of September at 7 o'clock.
And you've got to be a member, haven't you? And you've got to email to say that you're going so they know numbers.
Absolutely.
And where did you say it was at?
The Woodlands, so the old Hammer and Pincers.
No idea where that is, but I might go. I might go and try the food. And
yeah. It'd be good to see you there, and anybody else as well. Like, I know there's been a couple of questions of, why can't non-members go? I can't really answer that question, but what I can say as well is, if you are interested in joining Vips, there's a wide range of events that they put on. All the money goes to the playing and recruiting side of things. A great cause and run by great volunteers. We can't compliment enough how transparent they are either. So if you're interested in that,
I think the thing is that the fact that people are asking you that question is exactly why they're having these events. Is because that's an incentive to become a member. Because they're having, they're able to organise these events for people to come. And fair play to them for that. And I hope that it does drive them. I hope it does drive them some numbers. I think probably an underlying, in some ways, the underlying criticism of that isn't necessarily of Vips, but more that maybe fans wanted the club to hold something of that ilk. At some point, because I don't think we've had anything, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I don't think there's been anything since the off-season. There was one in the off-season last year, wasn't there, when it was about when Allan Coleman was up on the stage the first time, they talked about the IMG rating and all that palaver. Don't think there's been anything I don't feel like there's been a members' night or a fan night, whatever, since then.
Not from the start of the season. I think I think you are right. It was pre-season. Last one they did the shirt reveal as well, but we haven't had one for a while, to be honest. I think I personally enjoy them, and as well, what I would say for anybody listening to the podcast, going back to the Vips, night with Alan, it's a great opportunity to just show your face and ask the question to the horse's mouth. Me and James obviously do our best, but the man himself's going to be there, and I'm sure a lot of the questions obviously relate to Alan. So it's a great opportunity to, get off your chest your thoughts and feelings.
My only thing about the members' nights, Mike, and clearly I'm in a privileged position because I get to ask people questions when people pay me to ask them questions, I suppose. But the one thing that gets my back up the most at these members' nights is when people start going on about the referees. And
there's usually one every time.
And you spend 15, 20 minutes where someone says, what about these referees? And what about that? Why are the referees always against Widnes? And oh my God, that's just the worst.
What I personally like grabbing the microphone, maybe partly because I like the sound of my own voice, but no, you can articulate yourself a lot better. But what they used to do was used to send a pen and paper round, and then whoever was hosting the night, whether it was Roy Basnett, whether it was Rolty or somebody else, they'd sift through the questions, so you could fish out any non-relevant questions. I think maybe that's the way to go about it.
I mean, I don't. to be honest, I don't mind the microphone thing because I think that sometimes there's an impromptu. I mean, clearly, like I suppose I interview for a living in some aspects, but I never prepare questions for an interview. Never. I never, whenever I'm in a press conference or interviewing a player or a manager, I never prepare questions. There are journalists that do. So Matt Turner, a good friend of mine, I know that he does, but I never do it, and that's just because sometimes you're speaking to someone and their answer to your first question might prompt you to ask questions you would never have thought of, or ask about something else, and that's sort of why I like that whole non-scripted element to it. But yeah, I'll come along. Well, if I'm available, I'll come along to see what questions get asked, and I'll boo anyone that are about the referee.
Yeah, yeah. I'll save you a receipt, mate. It's only round the
I'll tell you, please do get down to that and support Widnes Vips, and hopefully we will see you at Doncaster on Sunday. It's a nice ground to work from, Doncaster, because it's a football ground, so it's very spacious. And so, yeah, looking forward to that. Thanks as ever for joining us. Please do like, share, and comment on the podcast wherever you listen to it. Get on the Widnes Rugby League fans Facebook group, and then get us on Twitter as well. But from me and Mike for this week, it's goodbye for now.